Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I understand that real tax reform is absolutely necessary. In 2013, the Harvard Business School published a report that identified the most important federal priorities to promote American growth and competitiveness. 2 of the 8 priorities were tax-related. First, to simplify the corporate tax code with lower statutory rates and fewer loopholes. And second, to reform the taxation of foreign profits so we don't disadvantage American businesses and workers. Many Democrats would work with the majority to achieve these pro-growth tax reforms. That's how it worked so well in 1986 under President Reagan and Speaker O'Neill. But we should not and we don't need to balloon the federal debt to achieve these goals, and that's exactly why Republican proposals in the House and the Senate are so harmful for our country. We know that national debt itself is anti-growth. That's why the same Harvard study that advocated tax reform also prioritized a stable federal budget. Public debt crowds out private investment. CBO estimates that every dollar in deficit crowds out 33 cents in private investment. Debt gives us less flexibility to deal with emergencies. Debt increases the risk of another financial crisis because when investors lose confidence in the government's ability to pay back borrowed funds, interest rates can spike. And as interest takes up more of the budget, less is available for other programs, including roads, bridges, scientific discovery, and our national defense. When Congress passed the Bush tax cuts, national debt was at a level equal to 32% of the U.S. economy. Today, it's 77% of GDP. These bills will put our national debt on track to be larger than our national economy. We can point fingers at each other about how we got here, but if we're trying to get out of a hole, first we need to stop digging. And we will not grow our way out of this hole. According to the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, no estimate that accounts for the economic impact of higher debt has found that the bill would raise the growth rate by more than a quarter of the Republicans' declared 0.4% growth target. In a survey at the University of Chicago, known for its conservative economic theory, 37 of 38 economists agreed that the GOP tax bills in Congress would cause U.S. debt to increase substantially faster than the economy. And at the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School, which the President himself trumpets as his alma mater, teeming with smart people, their dynamic scoring model that the House bill would lose between $1 trillion and $1.7 trillion over a decade in revenue after accounting for growth. What in the world has happened to the grand old party and fiscal responsibility? How will we pay for infrastructure now? Will we really risk destabilizing the dollar, the world's economic currency? Will we ask China to lend us money so that we can defend ourselves from North Korea? I've heard my Republican colleagues say again and again how important it is to pay for spending, to get our fiscal house in order, to get our national debt under control. I asked one colleague why he'd run for Congress in the first place, and he told me he was so concerned about loading his kids up with all this borrowing that he had to do something. His eyes filled with tears as he talked about his children. And yet he, like many like him, voted in a rush to add at least $1.5 trillion to the debt without a road or a Navy ship or one scientific grant to show for it. Nobody seriously contends that this is wonderful policy resulting from serious deliberation through regular order. It is not. The only reason for this effort, and this is out of the mouths of the legislators themselves, is that there's political pressure from interest groups and donors to get something done. That's the definition of putting party before country, and that's exactly what people hate about Congress. This is not what your constituents really want. They don't want their tax breaks to expire while corporate breaks don't. They don't want students to suffer from even more debt. They don't want to lose their health care because of the premium spikes we know are going to be coming. They don't want their housing to be more expensive even than it is today. And they don't want to face automatic Medicare cuts forced by congressional spending limits. If you are worried about the blowback from not doing something or taking the extra time to get it right, wait till you see the reaction when people realize what's really in this bill after it's already been passed. We can do real tax reform without jeopardizing our children's future. Make the corporate rate 25% instead of 20%, like the Business Roundtable and Mitt Romney both once suggested. That saves $600 billion. If you must lift the exemption for the estate tax, I wouldn't, but don't eliminate it. That saves $50 billion. Maintain the alternative minimum tax for high-earning families, but index it over time so it doesn't catch the middle class. Work with Democrats to find ways to limit tax expenditures, but save the burden for those who can afford it. If my Republicans will commit to doing that, I will commit to working with you, and I will honestly and publicly thank you for putting country before politics.